think in this area it will be very much improved.
Yeah.
My Lords, it's a pleasure to follow the noble Lord, Lord Thomas of Gresford, and to agree, particularly as a former newspaper editor, with everything the noble Lord has just said, and to offer Green support for work taking that forward. The noble Lord was making me think of many of a night huddled over a screen with an evening lawyer, anxiously worrying about whether we could get away with these few words. And there's a huge temptation to go the easy, the safe route, and just knock out those words. And that is almost invariably, I would say, knocking out a truth and denying the public a truth. Now, I wanted to begin the main part of my speech by reflecting, as a number of other noble lords have, on the scheduling issue, which is actually far from trivial. The Grand Committee room is empty today, where we were going to be having the committee stage of the Financial Services and Markets Bill, because representations to the usual channel succeeded, as such representations so rarely do, to say that it should not be conducted in parallel with this, the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Bill. It's the same people. It is the same issues. The noble Lord Davies of Brixton said there was overlap. My point to be made to your Lordship's House is there's much more than overlap. What we have are two bills that are pulling in 100%, 180 degrees opposite directions. Now, this bill is heading in the right direction, and as I so rarely do, I'm delighted to stand and say the Green Group backs the general tenor of this bill and wants to work with many other members of your Lordship's House to strengthen it. Now, I'm going to agree with much that the noble Lord the Minister said in the introduction, speaking of the weakness of Companies House, that the current system exposes the UK to corruption, that we're open to crime, that criminals are provided with a veneer of legitimacy, all of which was laid out in forensic detail by the noble Lord Seeker. Now, I would entirely agree with the noble Lord Vaux, who said, quote, high levels of economic crime have been allowed to build up for far too long, close quotes. So we have that. And I do have to go back a second and reflect on what a difference 2 years makes. And I feel like I perhaps need to apologise in advance to the noble Lord Agnew of Alton, because I'm going to quote his own words from 2 years ago back at him, and I know he's speaking after me. And I would say in advance of that what the noble Lord was saying then reflected what many other people in your Lordship's House were also saying. This was in the second reading of the Financial Services Bill 2 years ago. The noble Lord Agnew of Alton said then, quote, the UK is internationally recognised as having some of the strongest controls worldwide for tackling money laundering and terrorist financing. Close quotes. The noble Lord Agnew claimed we had, quote, a whole system response to economic crime, close quotes. I don't think that reflects the tenor of the debate today in your Lordship's House, from all sides of your Lordship's House, including from the dispatch box. And I will claim here that we are in an area, as so many, where the Green Party has led and others are now following. We have been saying, as the noble Lady Baroness Stowell of Beeston said, quote, London is the best place to hide from legitimate scrutiny. That's something the Green Party has been saying for a very long time. The centre of global corruption is the city just down the road from here. But what I want to do now is to seek to lead your Lordship's House further in this direction of making a link with the Financial Services and Markets Bill, which the rescheduling itself acknowledged. Two elements of that in particular: the addition of, quote, competitiveness to the aims of the Financial Conduct Authority, and indeed the way in which that bill, the Financial Services Market Bill, seeks to deliver what's being known as the Chancellor's Edinburgh package of reforms, which, to quote Transparency International, reinforces a strongly deregulatory approach. Now, I really would think it's worth looking back and highlighting the speech of the noble Lord Bourne of Aberystwyth, and to add to that some Transparency International figures, referring to 929 cases with 89 companies involved in corruption and money laundering in the 10 years from 2009. £137 billion in economic damage. Thousands and thousands of companies, maybe tens of thousands of UK companies, their business model is based on facilitating crime, on being enablers. We have too much finance. That's the name of a growing body of literature. We suffer from a finance curse, just like some countries suffer from a resource curse. It is too expensive for us to continue to base so much of our economy on this. And the damage, of course, is not far from just here in the UK. The high-level panel on international financial accountability, transparency and integrity for achieving the 2030 agenda, let's call it FACTI in future, focuses on how the poorest and most vulnerable pay for so much of this corruption and fraud. Now, in your Lordship's house, the noble Lord Goldsmith and I had an exchange on the issue of corruption and its impacts on the Democratic Republic of Congo. And in a subsequent Twitter exchange, the noble Lord Goldsmith felt that perhaps I'd been unfair to him in that he said, yes, he had acknowledged corruption was a big issue, but the noble Lord spoke about corruption in the Congo. I wanted acknowledgement from the government that a huge amount of the corruption affecting the Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, originates just down the road from here. Now, there's a number of points that have been made so well that I'm not going to go over them again. I'm just going to note Greens group support, the noble Lord Seeker. I think the idea of transparency of corporate tax returns is an excellent idea, and I look forward to working with the noble Lord on that in future. The noble Lord Vox gave us a very, very clear outline of how Transparency International has shown that the first economic crime bill isn't working and has a huge way to go, albeit that it's some progress. And many noble lords, including the noble Lord Thomas, have of course focused on the issues of SLAPPs. I do just want to take a moment to focus on the absolutely crucial importance, as I see it, of the failure to prevent amendment and the detail of that, of how important it's going to be. And I do want to point out the fact that in the 2015 Conservative Party manifesto, I quote, "We are also making it a crime if companies fail to put in place measures to stop economic crime, such as tax evasion, in their organisations, and making sure that penalties are large enough to punish and deter," close quotes. This is something promised in 2015. We're getting on from a decade there. It clearly is desperately needed. And of course, the Law Commission June 2022 paper focused on the importance of this, as did your Lordship's House Committee, Fighting Fraud, Breaking the Chain, report on the 2006 Fraud Act, this report that was published in November 2022. The UK Serious Fraud Office and the Crown Prosecution Service have all expressed their desire to see this delivered. But I want to finish by returning to where I started, and a shocking idea that we haven't yet heard from anyone else in your Lordship's House, made by making the link between the Financial Services and Markets Bill and this bill. A cleaner financial sector will be a smaller financial sector. It has to be, because fraud and corruption is a built-in design feature of so much of our current system. My Lords, we have to rethink the Financial Services and Markets Bill. We have to rethink the structure of our economy round finance. And, my Lords, we have to think about if this bill really delivers on its promises, there will be a lot of empty offices in the city, in Mayfair, that we're going to have to find a new use for. And I think there's many things we could do to deliver much better for the British people and the world than the current corrupt financial sector elements that now occupy them.
I refer, noble lords, to my register of interests as an advisor